Hey, hey.
Hey,
Happy
Joel, how's it
Monday.
going?
I'm well. How are you, Anthony?
Very good. Happy Monday to you. I'm excited to get to hang out with you today.
Yeah, this is a fun one. We're wrapping up the end of the year with some fun big plans for everyone so they can make a big year out of 2025.
That's awesome. Getting on those New Year's resolutions a little bit early.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. I love it. Well, I'm excited to hang out with you. I'm excited to hang out with a few other folks here hanging out in the chat as well. Welcome to Mary. She's on a Mexican vacation right
Oh,
now as we speak.
nice.
Not a
We're honored,
JQ
Mary.
vacation.
Thanks for joining us.
So, Elijah in Washington, welcome. Glad you're here. Time to go back to Japan. Sounds good. Welcome to Connie, Dinah. Welcome to everybody. You can let us know who you are and where you're from in the comments. And I know we've got our experts hanging out there as well, helping to run the chat and answer some questions as well. So, but it's
Yeah,
about that time. We should get started. What do you think?
yeah, let's do it.
Beautiful. Well, welcome everybody to the Jagut Village, a free community where we teach anyone, and we mean anyone, the basics of how to travel anywhere in the world for free. Today we're hanging out with Jagut founder, Joel McDonald.
Hello.
Welcome, Joel. What are we talking about today?
So we came up with the only 7 things you need to do if you want to travel bigger, better, and spend less in the next year. Really, the next year or 18 months. These are some of these strategies can take as long as 18 months to effectively put into place. But we're going to talk about a lot of the very common assumptions people have that kind of give them a bad taste in their mouth about travel. Everyone else calls it travel hacking. We call it travel hedging. And we like to believe that it makes things a lot easier when you focus on travel hedging. So we're going to talk about really the only 7 things that you need to travel bigger, better, and more and spend less and not worry about all of that typical stuff. And when I talk about that typical stuff, so many people, like, top of the list is, they think you need tons of credit cards. And they usually have the wrong cards. They might have an airline card that they put all of their spendings efforts on, or worse, they have a hotel card. And those are some of the lowest value points out there. And it's really difficult. And it's no wonder that people think, yeah, I tried that point hacking thing, because they had the wrong cards or they had the wrong types of points for what their needs were. Other people kind of say, oh, yeah, I've got unlimited 2% cash back. So they think that doubling that cash back from just a standard 1% is the best they can do. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. Anthony, weren't you a cashback person before?
Guilty as charged. Yeah, I was both of the things that you've said so far, trying to churn and juggle credit cards, and all of them were cash back. Because I, like most people, didn't know that you could do any better than a penny a point in cashback
Right.
using my credit cards.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not a bad way to go. Like, if you want to juggle dozens of credit cards, which, a lot of people don't, and that's why the JGoot way of travel exists. It's certainly one way to do it, but it's not the JGoot way. A lot of other people assume that if you want to be a travel hacker or a travel hedger, that means you have to fly budget airlines like Spirit or Frontier or Ryanair, or you have to take last minute or red-eye flights. And again, that is simply not true when you have a system in place. Status and upgrades, that's a big one. People always say, oh, how do I get an upgrade? And I'll be honest, I hardly ever upgrade because I have strategies in place to get the seats that I want. And for us, like, we don't mind flying in coach or premium economy for shorter domestic flights. But if our flight's going to be 3 or 4 hours or longer, we want to do that in business and first. And we have strategies for that. And I don't need status for that. I don't have status with any airlines. I have status with one hotel, but it's not required. But again, like, I thought it would be fun to kind of throw these ideas out there in a jumbled fashion, because that's what most people think this is. They think that you have to keep track of all of this stuff and and it's all or nothing, and you have to do all that, and that's why they throw up their hands and say this is too much trouble. Other things are, like people get tons of free stuff on Amazon, and the only reason they're getting tons of free stuff is probably because they're spending tons of money on credit cards and earning 5% back on the stuff they buy on Amazon, and 2% or 1 or 2% that they can use. Amex makes it easy to just push a button and buy your stuff and get it for free, but that's a fraction of what you could get in flights or hotels. We see a lot of people use it and they think, oh, well, as long as I use my points for travel, then that's a good use of points. And they'll use it for free cruises or free car rentals. But those aren't good uses of points. You're only going to get a penny and a half a piece, and you can get exponentially more than that.
I envision the spinning of the plates. You got to keep the plate spinning, and all of these things. I'm trying to run from one to the other to keep that plate spinning before it crashes on me.
Right. Yeah, and that is how a lot of the bloggers out there, they all have their own ways of doing things, and these all work to varying degrees. But do you want to have all of those plates spinning in the air with some occasionally crashing and breaking? Or do you want to just have a system? So today, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we've got Jagoot triangle of travel. And, the beauty of this is you don't need all of those strategies. You need only as many as you want to do. But there is a hierarchy of what will get you the most bang for the buck. And the reason I did this as a triangle is, again, we want to pick and choose which things we want to do that are going to get us the most bang for our buck or get us the most out of our vacation dollars. And when I learned this strategy, it meant spending an average of $1,000 or $2,000 on a vacation and getting a $10,000 to $50,000 vacation from, for a fraction of the cost. So I used to spend $1,000 to $3,000 for a very mediocre, very average vacation. Now I spend $1,000 to $3,000 and I get a $10,000 to $50,000 vacation. And people say, how do you do that? Well, when you're sitting in $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 seats per person, and you're staying at a resort that is $1,000 or $2,000 a night, it's pretty easy to rack up a bill like that. Now, none of us would ever pay. Well, very few of us would actually pay that much for a vacation. But when you can leverage points, when you can leverage status, when you can use strategies to stretch your budget 5 or 10 or 20 times farther, well, then why wouldn't you? So here it is right here. You can grab a screenshot. I'll share this screen at the end as well. I recommend just grabbing a screenshot. These are the only things you need to know. That's it. You don't need all of the other stuff. And the big thing here is so many people think that they need it all. You don't. You just need from the bottom up, whatever is going to get you the most bang for the buck. See, most people think, and again, this goes back to those assumptions like, oh, I don't have, it's too much trouble. I could never do like that friend who's always traveling. Yes, you could, but the key is to build up to it. And so that's why I liked this triangle of travel. Like most people spend 80% of their time on those top 2 or 3 triangles. They think they need status. They think they need millions of credit card points. So they run out and focus on those top level things. But at Jagoot, those are actually the last thing we focus on. We focus on foundational things that will allow us to get more out of less points. We can get more out of less spending on our credit cards. We can get more out of less spending on our flights and hotels by just doing these things in this order, not trying to skip to the top and go straight to globalist status with Hyatt, not skipping straight to the top and trying to get Platinum Pro status with American. Not skipping straight to the stop straight to the top and getting a Delta card because your wealthy friends have a Delta because they get status by spending $280,000 a year on their Delta card.
Yeah.
That might be great for them, but for everyone else who doesn't spend $280,000 a year on their credit card, there are a lot easier ways to fly in luxury.
Yeah. And it seems like those are a large number of the questions that we see in the Jagut Village, the stuff that you just addressed. What about this status or this card or all of these different things? So you're talking a significant mindset shift here in order to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that's step number one. So again, most people assume that what credit card should I get? Well, we don't know yet. We don't know your spending habits. We don't know your travel goals. And there's a different answer depending on those things. And you can figure that out in a book. You can figure that out in some of our mini memberships. But there's several other things that will allow you to get away with less points. So you don't need millions of points a year. You could get away with 100,000 or 200,000 for a very nice vacation once a year. So instead of focusing on those top things, you don't want to focus on the bottom stuff. Or, I mean, you want to start with the bottom stuff. You don't want to ignore it. So many people say, yeah, that's basics. How do I get globalist status? Yeah, that's basics. How do I fly in a Delta One? There are so many flights that are so much better than Delta One that can be booked for a tiny fraction of the points. Okay, so let's see. Let's start from the bottom up. And so many people skip this, and so many people say, yeah. So what card should I get? This blogger says it's 100,000 points. I should skip that. Do we need to mute you, Anthony? I'll call on you when we need to. Sounds like a busy house back there. So yeah, stop chasing shiny objects. These 7 things are it. And as soon as you say, what about the Capital One? It's got unlimited 2x points. Or what about, such and such a sign-up bonus that has 180,000 points? Well, those are being recommended by travel bloggers who are paid to get credit cards in your wallet. That's the biggest difference between Jagut and everyone else. I mean, sure, we get some referral fees, but we don't make our living off of checks that come from credit card companies. All of the free travel bloggers out there do. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's what allows them to help millions of people through their free travel blogs. But we really prefer to focus on the 2 or 3 credit cards that will do 80% of the work compared to having all of the other credit cards that will only do 20% of the work. So stop chasing shiny objects. If you want to, and I say this in the book, if you want to travel the Jagut way, go ahead and do that and unsubscribe from all of the other travel blogs. You can come back to them later once you're getting $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year in free travel. But for the beginning, if you want to learn to travel like all the people you see in Jagut Village, like all the people that you see talking about how great Jagut Lounge is, get rid of all the other travel blogs. Just put your blinders on and focus on the Jagut way. Focus on the 3 exercises in this book that will show you how to travel the Jagut way. They're on page 19, page 51, and page 101. And I know that seems backwards, but that is the most important thing because, correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to chime in if this used to be you or if this is currently you. You're probably reading The Points Guy and View from the Wing and Upgraded Points and 10x Travel and all of these different travel blogs, and you're experiencing what's called paralysis by analysis because you just keep thinking, oh, so-and-so said I should get this card. So-and-so says I should get this card. And you end up doing nothing. And the longer you put off getting started, the longer it is before you start building that momentum. And just like building wealth, it's not about earning tons and tons of points or tons of money. It's about slowly putting things away and accumulating wealth over time. Just like the Jagut way, you slowly start to put points away and accumulate them. And before you know it, you'll have the skills to do exponentially more with them. but you got to start by just starting with the basics. And that's more about what you don't do than what you do.
Yeah, Brooke pointed this out. Those shiny objects, they look so pretty. They're very, very tempting, but without this concept, yep, exactly. If you don't focus on the basics,
all shiny objects,
all the other things can't fall into place, and you make, like you said, everything exponentially harder.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't need millions of points when this is the case. You don't need every card under the sun. Again, most travel bloggers brag about the 20 to 30 to 40, if not 50 credit cards that they have in their wallet. When you travel the JGoot way, all you need is 2 or 3. You just need to learn how to use them, and we're going to talk about that here. You don't need to follow a dozen free travel blogs. Again, nothing wrong with those blogs. I learned a ton from a lot of those blogs 10, 12 years ago. But if you're trying to learn the JGoot way, we do things very differently. We do things the opposite of how almost every other travel blogger out there teaches, because we don't get paid by credit card companies. And so we're not compensated to get as many cards in your wallet as possible. We're compensated to show you how to get as much as possible out of 2 or 3 credit cards. I hear this all the time. I mean, people always say, how do I get globalist status? How do I get diamond status? I will only stay at Marriott because I have lifetime titanium status. And we show people with just a basic Discoverist status at Hyatt that you can get with 5 nights a year, or you can get it by just getting their credit card, which we don't really recommend except in extenuating circumstances. You don't need any of that stuff. And I can show people how to take basic status at any hotel chain and beat Marriott Titanium status or Hilton Diamond status or whatever, just by knowing what to ask for and knowing how to use the status that you do have.
Yeah. Now, Joel, I want to pop in a question. I know our experts are out there answering questions, but Jeanette said used to use. She's making the shift. And so I want to give her credit for that. And let's ask this question. We're not using all of these shiny object cards, but isn't it bad to close those out? How do we handle that if we're making the shift to better cards?
So 2 things. One is that's extremely important when you're a card churner and you're constantly juggling dozens of credit cards. It's not as important when you travel the JGoot way because you're only focusing on 2 or 3 credit cards. Now, that's not to say you should go and close a card you've had for 30 years that's got a $25,000 limit. That would have an impact on your credit score.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, most of those fees, especially the ones that don't carry an annual fee, you can throw in a drawer, forget about them, let them continue to keep your credit score up, and then learn to use the ones that will work harder for you.
Perfect. Well said. Thanks, Joel.
So let's see. Shiny objects to avoid. I took a picture of this just the other day. I saw, I was at Macy's and I saw all over their store, I saw signs that said, get 20% off today by signing up for our credit card. Don't do that. I don't care. I mean, even if you're buying $2,000 worth of stuff, it is not worth signing up for a credit card to save $400. Any credit card you put in your wallet should get you $1,000 to $10,000 a year in travel benefit. If it's not going to get that for you, you shouldn't even contemplate getting the card. Not just a sign-up bonus. $1,000 to $10,000 per year. Same with low-value hotel cards. Marriott and Hilton are famous for this. Like, here's 120, 180,000 points, and that sounds like a lot. And it's not until years later that you go to spend those points after, spending possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars and accumulating hundreds of thousands of points, do you learn that they charge 40 to 120,000 points a night. So what seemed like a lot of points turns out to be nothing. But by the time you realize that, you're in the habit of cards of having that card in your wallet. You don't want to do that thing all over again, and they've got you. They've got you for life. So avoid hotel cards until you really know what you're doing, until you really know how to get tens of thousands of dollars in free travel from other cards that are easier to get that value. Airline cards, same thing. We talked to Delta loyalists because they love their free bags. Well, when you use points for business class, you don't get charged for bags. And that's, for our family, that's largely what we use our points for bougie business class flights across an ocean or for bougie hotels, and occasionally for emergency use, which we're going to talk about.
Which would you rather have? Hope you like the free bag because it may have just cost you a free business class flight.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just talking with a friend who is still, loyal to Delta, spends a ton, gets status from that, gets free bags, gets free domestic upgrades. And I said, how often have you gotten, an upgrade on a long haul flight when it actually matters? Like when it's a 10-hour flight where you don't want to be sitting in coach or even premium economy. And it's never happened. And worse, Delta points are worth far less than flexible points where you can take those points and give them to whoever's given the best deal. 9 times out of 10, it's going to cost you 2 or 3 times as many points to fly on Delta as it would to fly on another airline, sometimes in better seats. And that's probably one of the biggest traps out there. Jennifer Garner, she's got a great smile. She's got a sweet personality, and she does all those commercials that talk about how great her unlimited 2% cash back is. But that's at the expense of 10, 20, 50%, not cash back, but free travel. So in other words, if you spend 10 grand on an unlimited 2% cash back card, you're going to get $200 in cash back. If you spend 10 grand on a flexible card where you know how to leverage those points for free travel, you can get 1,000 to 5,000 in free flights and hotels. That's 10 to 50% back. And there are people that do far more than that. Those are rare.
Yep. Brooke has a great example. Hear that every day. Tried to use my mom's Delta points, she said, to get the kids and grandma to Rome, 450,000 points apiece, using flexible points, 150,000 each for the same flight. That's the difference in airline points.
I personally have flown business and first class, and when I fly business class, it's still lie flat. It turns into a bed. That's another misnomer. People think that you need to fly first class to get those kinds of seats. No, you need to know which aircraft has those kinds of seats in business class. But I personally have never spent more than 90,000 points on a business or first class flight, including flights that had bars on them, flights that had apartments in them, which I flew on. Singapore Suite, Etihad apartment, Emirates, the famous bar flight. I've never spent more than 90,000 points, and I often spend far less than that. And yeah, Delta charges 250,000, 500,000 points all the time.
Yep.
So that's step number 1. I mean, just stop making it overwhelming for yourself, and it makes doing the right stuff a lot easier. So step number 2, and this is a big one. This is unique to Jagoot, but try to take at least one. We're not asking you to change your lifestyle. We're not asking you to change where you go every year for your vacation. We're not asking you to change your every other year with, the each side of the family plans. You don't have to change any of that, but plan on taking in this next year, try to take one unplanned trip. And that doesn't mean you have to hop on a plane and fly last minute. But this could be a trip that you weren't planning on, but is such a good deal. And when I say a good deal, I'm talking about $30 flights in business class across an ocean and 30,000 points each way. So 60,000 points round trip. Or a cash deal, $30 round trip to visit a friend in the States. So it doesn't have to be a big flight. It doesn't have to be last minute. It doesn't have to be multiple layovers. There are deals out there every day. And if you just have a goal of planning one unplanned trip, one trip that you weren't planning on taking, but is such a good deal, I promise you, you will be hooked. And as soon as you do that, it will start to change how you think about vacations. How do you start to plan for vacations? And you'll realize how much it's costing you when you say, we want to go to Rome from June 14th to June 21st, when 99% of everyone else in the United States wants to go to Rome too. But just doing that one thing, you can probably still go to Europe, but you're going to have to, you're going to have to plan your vacation around the deal. There are plenty of vacations that work with your calendar. There are plenty of vacations to the place you want to go, but you have to find the deal first and then work around it. Like I said, don't change anything else about all of your other vacations. We're just getting you to change your mindset and plan one extra trip this next year. And I promise you, once you experience that, once you see how much less effort it was to plan that trip and how much less you spend, whether cash or points or a combination of both, that's gonna open your eyes to so much. So there are 3 combinations of unplanned trips you can do. And this kind of goes for when I travel the traditional way too. But really, we're talking about points, and points are like an insurance for spending less money on your travels. So the easiest way is a dirt cheap flight and free accommodations. That may or may not be points. If you don't have points, maybe it's a dirt cheap flight, like a $50 round trip to visit a friend who you haven't seen in a few years. And it's a long weekend trip. But it's a cash flight that's so cheap you can't not book it. Maybe you've been wanting to sit on a beach and drink umbrella drinks for a long weekend. Just watch for flights to the Caribbean. And when you find one, maybe it's Aruba, maybe it's Cabo, maybe it's Cancun. I don't know. I've been to them all because I look for those deals and they're so cheap, we just book them. When my wife and I were first dating, she, after our second or third trip, it usually involves some flexibility. So I would say, hey, honey, what are you doing over, Thanksgiving? Can you take an extra day off? Can you take that Monday after Thanksgiving off? And she just started to say, where are we going? Because that's how we found the deals. Found the deal, massaged our calendar to see if we could make it work. And you'll spend 90% less. And when you can spend 90% less on flights and hotels, you can travel more often. You can do cooler stuff on your vacations. You can eat out at fancier restaurants. You can eat out more often. You can stay at hotels instead of Airbnbs so that you don't have to cook. You can stay at Airbnbs and save money on cooking. You can do anything you like. So flavor number 2 is look for a free flight. There are tools out there where you can just say, what have you got to Europe? And I'll name them in the next slide. What have you got to Europe in the month of June? And there's stuff. It's peak season, and there are great deals that you can get on cash or points. In this case, this would be looking for deals that you schedule a vacation around based on a free flight. It doesn't mean you have to book a free hotel. You just saved 95% on your flights. Who cares what you spend on hotels? You can book a cheap one. You can book an expensive one. You can book a nicer one. That's up to you because you saved almost 100% on your flights. And then the third flavor, this is remember, we're talking about unplanned trips. If you have a week sometime that you could make a trip work, look during that week. And sometimes you can be really, really picky. And if you have enough points, you can plan your trip around the free flight. Because remember, you got to go when you can do it for the fewest points. And maybe that means taking an extra day off work. Maybe it means shorten your vacation by a day. Who knows? But you schedule a trip around the free flight. And before you book the flight, you look to see if you can also get a free hotel on points. This is how you find those unicorn deals where you did a whole vacation and the flight and hotel portion cost you $200 and you flew there first class. You stayed in a 4-star all-inclusive resort and you spent who cares how much on your excursions because you just got free flights and free hotels, which eliminated the most expensive part of most people's vacations. Now, these things are a lot more difficult when you travel the traditional way. That's why this is an important foundational concept. It is infinitely easier to plan a vacation around a deal than it is to plan a vacation and then hope to find a deal. So that's why this is one of those foundational principles. And just by doing those two things, you don't need millions of points. You don't need dozens of credit cards. You just need common sense.
Yep, well done. That was my introduction when I finally got it. Back when I found Jay Good a few years ago, was an unplanned trip. Before you made that an experiment, we took that experiment, and still to this day, my favorite trip that we've taken. It's just me and my son. He was 5 at the time, and we got out of town for the week. Yeah, for just I think it was a Monday to a Tuesday or something, like Tuesday to Wednesday. It was just an overnight trip. Me and my son, I found a $38 round trip flight for both of us. We paid a total of $38 round trip out of pocket. We booked a hotel on points, and Dad and his oldest son went exploring, hit the Atlanta Aquarium and all kinds of things there. And so just taking that one unplanned trip really opens up a lot of opportunity. And people, I feel like, think that it has to be a downer. Well, if it's not my planned trip, I don't even want to go on it. We weren't planning on that trip, but we had a blast.
Yeah.
Because we found a great deal and found, like you said, things that we could afford to do now because we spent hardly anything out of pocket to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so cool. And it's so many people say, I can't do that. Yes, everyone can do that. You might not be able to do that for your annual trip to Cabo because you own a timeshare there and you're committed to those weeks. But who's to say you can't do that for an extra trip you weren't planning on? And remember, that's the goal. The goal of Jay Good is to travel more. So if you're going to travel more, why not try one the experimental way versus the traditional way, which is why most people think travel has to be expensive.
Yep.
Now notice we've hardly even talked about points. I mean, some of these assume you're going to build points, but notice that this is not the highest priority. Why? Because this is how you don't need millions of points. This is how you can get away with, you can have a luxurious vacation for 2 to 4 people once a year on 100 or 200,000 points. It's tough, but if just based on those 2 principles, totally doable. Speaking of, this third strategy is along the same lines. Now, this assumes you have points or assumes you're willing to be open to getting points. But plan farther ahead. I can't tell you how often we run across people that say, oh, I got the book. I'll be sure to check it out before my next trip. And that's usually like 2 months before their trip. And that's usually too late. By Jay Good standards, like within 3 months is last minute. The best deals, the unicorn deals, those happen 11 months out. And if you don't have the points, you can't book those. So it's very, very important. That's why I said 12 to 18 months. So, and the way to do this, like if you don't have points, well, plan ahead and start looking as soon as 18 or 12 months out and look on Google, use the Google or Kayak Explore features. We've got a training on that inside Jay Good Vault. You can check that out by just going to jaygood.com, and it's under the 10 sites section. And we've got plenty of other Rule 1 strategies that you can use. Going on cash is a Rule 1 strategy. Going on points is a Rule 2 strategy. So either way, they're great tools that will allow you to look far ahead and plan a vacation around a deal. So this is where, like, you say, oh, I can't do that. I have to plan my vacations. Great. We'll start planning farther ahead because that's how you're going to find the way better deals. And there are tools for that. Google Kayak if you're going on cash, Seats.Aero, my personal favorite, or Point.me. I also have a subscription to that. And those are how you're going to find the best deals using points. Learn to be flexible. This is another thing that we teach. A big one is called positioning flights. And that might mean that you have to get yourself to New York before the long haul flight to Eastern Europe. That might mean that you have to get yourself to LA or San Francisco or Seattle before your long haul flight to Asia or the Middle East. Those are called positioning flights, and that's how us regular folks who don't want to spend $5,000 or $10,000 per person for a flight do it. And that's how we do it without needing hundreds of thousands of points. Like I said, I've flown business and first class dozens of times, and I've never in my life spent more than 90,000 points. And I think the most I've spent on cash was like 300. And that was for an Etihad apartment, 300 plus points. And it was for a once in a lifetime experience that most people will never experience in their lives. And I did it for less than what almost everyone else on the plane paid for their coach seat. And so if you have points, you can start looking 11 to 12 months out. Like I said, every airline varies, but most of them open up about 330 days in advance. So anything and people with points pounce on those deals. They're not plentiful. There are only about 1% of seats out there that pop up, and people are looking for them year round. So in a lot of cases, especially if you're looking for rare destinations like Asia or Africa, you've got to plan ahead. And by planning ahead, A, you've got to have the points, the right points, and B, you have to be ready to pounce on it possibly 330 days out, because by 329 days out, it might be too late. Someone probably got them before you. So if you have points, you can start looking 11 to 12 months out. If you don't have points, well, you should start collecting them probably 15 to 18 months out. Because depending on how much you spend, it might take you a bit to earn them. Now, don't run out and just get any old points. This is where the JGoot way starts to kick in. So, I always recommend, the book recommends, everyone at JGoot recommends that you start with Chase points. These are what I like to call your emergency stash of points. They're not always used for an emergency, but the idea is at the very least, if you've got suddenly, heaven forbid, you have to go to a funeral across the country, you've at least got some points. Does that mean you're going to use them on your flight? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on whether or not it's a good deal. You might have to pay through the nose for your flight, but thank goodness you have Chase points that are also a great deal for lodging. So the odds are pretty good that if you have flexible Chase points, and when I say that, I mean Chase Ultimate Rewards points. If you have those, the first thing you're going to do is go, oh gosh, those are $700 a piece. And we have a family of 5. We did not have $3,500 in the budget to go to this funeral. But if you don't have points, that's what you got to do. Whereas if you have points, odds are you'll be able to do that for a lot less cash and a lot less points than you think. Now, it doesn't always work, but that's the beauty of Chase, is it works great for flights as well as hotels. Now, Chase points are about the only card that will get you a great value on hotels. Hilton, very, very rare. You'll be lucky to get half a penny a piece. Marriott, same thing. IHG, same thing. Those are 3 of the 4 major chains. Hyatt is the 4th biggest. It's smaller than all of them, but it has the best deals. And you might, even if you have to pay through the nose for your flights, well, at least you've got a pressure relief by kind of using your Chase points towards Hyatt hotels. And when I say Hyatt, why do I say Hyatt hotels? I just did this experiment last month. We went to Durham for my brother's 50th birthday, and we got in late. We just stayed at a hotel the night before. And just for the sake of exercise, I looked it up. There were plenty of $200 and $250 hotels between Chase, Hyatt, Marriott, Hilton, etc. Hilton wanted 45,000 points a night. Marriott wanted 50,000 points a night. We stayed at a similarly priced hotel. This was like $220 to $250. All 3 of them, The hotels we're looking at were $220 to $250 a night. It was 9,000 points for Hyatt. So the beauty of Chase is they're easiest. It's as easiest to start with. There's something else called the 524 rule, which we don't have time to get into. You can Google it if you want to, if you're a glutton for punishment, or you can just take our word for it and start with Chase. And the beauty is, if you can't get a good deal on flights, you can probably get a good deal on hotel. If you can't get a good deal on hotel, you can probably get a good deal on flights. It's the only card that has that flexibility for both flights and hotels. So that's why
now,
we
when you
recommend
say
starting with Chase.
Chase Ultimate Reward Points, there are some specific Chase cards that will earn those, right? Not just any Chase card.
Absolutely. And yes, so we should go over a couple of them. There's the Chase Sapphire. Either one will do. Preferred or reward. Preferred
Reserve.
or reserve. Thank you. And there's a little questionnaire in the book that helps you decide that. You could also have an ink card, but beware, there is one card, the Ink Premier card. They call them Ultimate Rewards points, but they're not transferable. And the value is in transferring your points. You don't want to book them through Chase. That's another lesson for another time. But yes, you pretty much want a Sapphire card or an Ink card with Chase. The Chase United card does not work. The Chase Southwest card won't work. The Chase Marriott card won't work. We like to say when you're branded, you're stranded. So if it's got an individual hotel or airline or cruise line associated with it, you're stuck with that brand, and you're pretty much stuck with a penny a piece or less.
Yep,
but
that's a good clarification. There's a lot of chat a lot of chatter about different credit cards in the chat right now. So we want to be really clear on which cards it is that Jagoot recommends, because it's a world of difference, like Joel described, in the value that you're going to get from those points.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we don't have time to go through it, but I learned this lesson on a Hawaii trip. I got a Chase card. I got a Marriott card. One of them got me about $800 in free hotels from I got 100,000 points. I didn't even get 3 nights. I got 2 nights. Cost me 40,000 points a night for a $400 hotel, penny a piece. I got $2,600 in flights out of 50,000 Chase points. So, I took 50,000 points and got $2,600 in value. I took 100,000 points and couldn't get more than $800 in value. I had to spend more dollars to earn more points to get more free nights. So yeah, flexible points, ultimate rewards. That's all you need. Now, a lot of what we teach is don't just get the card. I like to say, you can buy a samurai sword on eBay. That doesn't make you a samurai. You still got to practice. You still got to learn how to use it. And so many people just get the card and think, oh, I'm magically going to be able to whisk off to Europe in first class. Nope, you still got to learn to use it. Mm-hmm. And one of those is what we call earning multipliers. You need to learn how to earn more points. And don't underestimate the power of that. It's possible to spend $100 and get 1,000 or 2,000 points when you do it right. Not all the time, but do that enough times and you can accumulate points quickly. Best places to do that, learn to use shopping portals, learn to use dining portals, you learn to use hotel portals. You can spend $1,000 and get 30,000 points. You can spend $100 and get 2,000 points. And the portals are great ways to do that. You can Google it, or you can go to jagoot.com and check out our earning multiplier class, where we teach you specifically how to earn more, how to get the right cards in your wallet and then earn more points doing that. Of course, we teach that in depth in Jagoot Lounge as well. And so again, this is the really, really important part. These are good for flights. They're also good for hotels. As much as I love Amex, Amex is not very valuable for hotels. So you need a balance of both. I always like to say there is no one credit card that does it all. But if you get the right 2 or 3, you can get 90% of it done just by having the right 2 or 3 in your wallet. And really, that's at least one Chase card, at least one Amex card.
Yep.
And worst case, if you have a Sapphire Reserve, it does get 1.5x either in the portal, cash back. So even, in that funeral scenario, absolute worst case, you're staring down and, a $3,500 or let's call it a $3,000 redemption for flights because it's a hotel, it's last minute, you have no control over when or where. We've all been there. You know what I'm talking about. Worst case, you could dip into 200,000 points and go completely free. And again, that's worst case. We don't recommend spending less and getting less than 2 cents a piece, and that would only be 1.5. But still, this is why we recommend starting with Chase, because you can erase any credit card charge. You can use it towards flights. You can use it towards hotels. And the sooner you start practicing, especially using the exercise on page 51 of the book, which I highly recommend, the sooner you see the light of like, oh my gosh, I just used $100 worth of points and got $350 in lodging for free. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Just from having the right card in your wallet. And again, don't hope to knock it out of the park your first time. Aim to use those points to offset the cost of either the flight or the hotel. Odds are it'll be able to offset the cost on one or the other. If both, that's a bonus, but really it's, these are emergency points. We're getting started with emergency points so that you don't get caught with your pants down next time you have a travel emergency, and they do happen. Now, before we move on, I just want to say that, actually, I have another slide before we move on to Amex, but we can quit right here. So many people say, this is too complicated. If you just do those first 3 things and just get one Chase card that earns ultimate rewards and just kind of limp in, just barely learn how to use it. Experiment with dining. Like, go to a restaurant that earns you more points. That's pretty easy to do. There are lots of things you can do to earn 3 or 4 times as many points. You could quit right there. You don't have to do anything else. You don't need status. Like I said, I don't have status with any airline. I have status with Hyatt because I took advantage of it when I could stay 13 nights. And I was doing that anyway. But other than that, I don't rely on status. I don't need it. I can get better flights than most of my friends who have status, courtesy of their company. So you don't even need Amex. Now, Amex is how you up your game. Amex is how you're going to get into the bougie flights, bougie experiences, all of that stuff. But like I said, Chase works for flights and hotels. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can quit right here. And that's what we recommend. Do quit right there until you feel comfortable. And that's it. You've got all the bases covered. You could quit watching this video. If you do those 4 things, you're going to be better off than 98% of people that have points and don't know how to use them. And I mean that literally. Like, you could go on a plane, and if you just apply these strategies and learn how to spend your points, use JGoot Calculator to make sure you're not wasting your points, you could get on a plane and confidently know that if you used points, you spent less than 98% of people on that plane. And you don't need to go any further. Because remember, the higher up we go, the more the difficulty increases. And kind of there's a diminishing return on the value. The real value is in these lower foundational things.
Yep. That's well said, because a lot of times I've talked with a ton of people who look at Chase and they view it as this low value starter card that they should just blow right by to get to the big leagues of Amex. There is so much value there for the reasons that you just outlined. They're the one card that you can do well with both flights and hotels.
Yep. And this is something I didn't like in that emergency scenario, because that's also how people blow vacations. They didn't have, grandpa's funeral in the budget, and they have a family of 6. And guess what? That funeral just cost them a vacation. And Chase points can ease that burden. There's a lot that Chase points can do that Amex points can't. You can use points on Southwest for free flights on Southwest, which if you have a companion pass, pretty good deal. You can use Chase points on United. Amex points won't get you onto United, not for less than a penny a piece, or not for more than a penny a piece. They won't get you on what's the other one? Hyatt. Hyatt's the biggest one. Yep. You can't book Hyatt hotels with Amex. So do you want to blow 40,000 Amex points, or do you want to spend 9,000 Chase points? It's going to be a $200-$300 hotel either way. So again, you want a balance of both. So before moving on to Amex, we recommend a couple things. One, you should have 25 to 50,000 points per person in your family. So if you've got a family of 4, you want to have a bare minimum of 100,000 Chase points, as like I said, that's your emergency reserve. And you want to have a bare minimum of, if you have a family of 4, bare minimum of 100 and possibly up to 200,000 if you're in a smaller airport. If you've got a larger family, just personal preference, depending on your spending power. If you don't spend a ton, 25K will do. If you spend a ton, 50, aim for 50 before you move on to Amex. The other thing, and this is something that I recommend in the book, you really want to get to a point where you're getting 10% of every dollar you spend. So, like at that, I used that $10,000 scenario before. If you spend 10 grand on a cash back card, you get $200 cash back. We want you to get to where you're getting at least $1,000 in free travel. So every 10 grand you spend on your Chase card, you want to be able to redeem at least 1,000 in free flights or hotels. And remember, Chase can use towards either. And that's more of an experience thing because Amex does get a lot more complicated. So we really recommend that you kind of have that baseline of experience. Not possible to get $1,000 for every 10,000 with just bare bones beginner skills. You got to learn some things about transfer partners. You got to learn some math, which we help with at jgoot.com/calculator. That's what's going to get you to that 10%. And really it's, if you can earn an average of 3.3 cents for every dollar you spend, 3.3 points for every dollar you spend. And then if you can take those points and redeem them for an average of 3.3 cents, there you go. You're at $1,000 for every 10,000 you spend because you're at 10% in rewards. And once you do that, then you're ready for Amex. And the way you do that, learn to earn more than an average of 3 cents on the earning side. Learn to redeem more than 3 cents when you redeem your points, and never ever waste them for less than 2 cents. That's what's going to get you to that 10-cent benchmark or 10% benchmark. And again, you can go to jgoot.com. You can check out our earning multiplier course. You can check out our redemption multiplier course if you'd like a little additional help beyond what's in the book. But I'm here to tell you, this book has all you need. Just go and implement it. And then if you want additional help, plenty of info on jgoot.com. All right, let's talk about the big leagues. Amex. So notice we're climbing higher on that pyramid. With that comes difficulty. With that comes overwhelm. Far more important to master those first 4 levels. And it's far more valuable to master those first 4 levels than it is to just skip straight to Amex because it's the Cadillac of all point earning cards, which it is. Basically, the big advantage to Amex, they get tons of points through earning multipliers like Amex Offers and Rakuten. I could take up an hour telling you stories of times that my Amex card, I spent a couple $100 and picked up 5,000 or 10,000 points. Spent a couple. I don't think I've ever spent more than 1,000. But one time I spent $500, got 50,000 points. That's a business class flight to Europe. So who cares what I bought? I bought something that I needed for $500, and I got enough points for a $2,000 to $10,000 flight to Europe. That's the power of earning multipliers. And Amex also has the widest selection of airlines. That's a pro and a con. You get more airlines to choose from, and the more airlines you can choose from, the better odds you have of finding a great deal, but they don't have great deals for hotels. Yes, you can transfer your Amex points to Hilton, but those are crap points. They're they're just terrible value. We just stayed at a Hilton this weekend for my son's graduation, and I refused to waste my Amex points. I mean, we threw a party there, so we got a group rate, and it was $260. It was 45,000 points. No way am I wasting 45,000 points.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing on that one.
Yeah. So, Amex could do it, but it's not a good value. So you got to choose your battles on when you're going to spend your points. And then again, the beauty of this is you don't need any more. That's it. If you ever join Jagoot Lounge, we're not going to upsell you into other credit cards. We might help you decide if you need a third or a fourth card, or if you have enough spend to justify a fourth card. That's usually the only reason you would need a fourth card. Most of the time, we advise that people get 2 or 3 credit cards. And again, now you've upped your game, and we built up to this. So don't let this figure concern you, because you will have learned how to earn a lot more points through Chase, and then you're going to master those skills even more through Amex. And 100 to 200,000 points per person is not as astronomical as it sounds, especially if you build up to that level, especially if you don't try to take every single vacation for free and you kind of hoard your points and save them for ultra high value. They keep accumulating. You keep getting better at earning more points. And that's not as scary of a number as that looks like. And I think that's it. So that's it for points. We're getting into diminishing returns here. Hotel status would be next. And again, you don't need to run out and get hotel status. A lot of people will go, and it's called mattress runs. And you might have to stay 40 or 60 nights or 80 nights at a hotel to earn this status. It's just not necessary. I can show someone how to go get a Hyatt credit card, earn Discover status without ever staying a single night at a hotel, and then learn how to ask for an upgrade. And they can get treated better than someone with the top status at any hotel chain, including Hyatt. Okay, I do have to share this story. I've been Globalist for 3 years now, going on my 4th. And I very early on, we stayed at Hyatt Regency, Grand Hyatt in San Diego, beautiful hotel. And it was like my first stay, I think, maybe second. Whatever, it was very early, and I was a Globalist, and I asked, my wife had never been, and I just kind of limped in, and I just said, hey, my wife's never been. She really wants to see the bay, the marina. And they said, sure. They gave me a higher floor, slightly bigger room, great view of the bay. We were Globalists, the top status possible. My wife had to go back and ask for something, and the person in front of her, she heard their conversation, and they said, and she heard them greet the concierge, or the desk agent greet them and said, oh, welcome. Thank you for being a Discoverist. Discoverist is the lowest status with Hyatt. And they said, I see that you have a corner room on the, 25th floor. And, we were 18th. And this was like a very nice, very expensive room with way better views than ours. And they gave it to him. So you don't need top status. You need to know how to ask for what you want. And having just the bare bones minimum status is enough. That's all you need. So don't go like spending money unnecessarily doing mattress runs just to earn status. Learn how to use basic status, and use cheap and free nights to earn that status. Don't go out of your way to get status. Plan trips. Remember this rule number 2: unplanned trips. Those can also be planned around great deals on lodging. So you can go find a cheap place, stay a few extra nights, earn a little extra status, and do it that way. Or better yet, just get an Amex Platinum. They'll give you gold status on Hilton and Marriott instantly. I've gotten, they call it the Bill Self Room. I moved my daughter. I stayed at pretty much the only nice hotel in Lawrence, Kansas. It's called the Oread, and they gave me the penthouse suite because I had gold status and I asked for it. That's it. And gold status at Hilton is not anything special. So don't chase status. Just get minimum status and learn how to use it. And then finally, everyone wants airline status. Lots of people will spend in order to earn status. They'll fly extra legs to earn status. Sure, it's doable, but it's a lot of effort for little reward. Now, if you travel all the time domestically, then sure, you'll get those upgrades. But the Jay Goot strategy is just book the seats you want. When you have status, you still have to book the seat that you want because you're not guaranteed the upgrade. So if you're uncomfortable taking a 4.5-hour flight in coach, well, then you're going to have to pay for premium economy or use one of your certificates or whatever. But you're not guaranteed an upgrade to business or first, especially long haul flights. Those odds are slim to none. So it's a lot of effort for a little reward, if any reward at all. And also, it's rarely worthwhile for those long haul flights. So why do people jump in and assume they need to get status or ask about upgrades for the lowest likelihood of getting the seats they want? Why not just learn to earn more points and book the business and first class flights so you're guaranteed those seats?
Yep. And when you book them outright, correct me if I'm wrong, if you book it outright because you find a good deal on points, that's your seat over somebody who has status and is counting on an upgrade.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen plenty of times where we are getting on business and first class, and I'll see people with status jockeying with the agents to try to get an upgrade. They ain't getting it, and we got it, and we paid $6.
Yeah.
So it's so much easier to just learn to earn more points and book the seats you want. And so, yeah, that's the triangle of travel. There literally is nothing else. A lot of people think, oh, you charge the big bucks. You're holding back all the secrets, and we got to pay you the big bucks to learn how to do it in Jay Goot Lounge. Not the case at all. I just showed you the complete open book of the Jay Goot way of travel. The key is practice. And sure, you can join Jay Goot Lounge and you can practice with us, and we've got a very regimented way of teaching you how to do this. We go through 5 different checkpoints where we teach you essentially this strategy, and it's hands-on. But you're not paying for extra information. You can get all this information on these webinars. You can get this information on the web. And the key is to get out there and do it yourself. Just like you can't learn to ride a bike from a textbook, you can't learn to swim from reading a book. You've got to get in the pool and do it and just practice.
That's very well said. But it all starts with that bottom level, the most important level. There's a whole mindset shift here. And if you'll do that, then all the other stuff can fall into place. But the longer you fight that mindset shift, the longer you're going to complain that you can't figure out the Jay Goot way of travel.
Yeah, people, they make it so hard on themselves. They say, oh, well, I have a large family. All the more reason to learn to travel this way. Oh, I've got kids in school. I had kids in school when I learned it this way, and I was married to a teacher, and they had different school schedules. So our window was even smaller because I forget, my kids got out later than my wife did and went back earlier than she did. And we had an even smaller window than most people in traditional schools. So, but by having those foundational principles, just about anything is possible. And the worst case, you save half because, again, most of the time you're either going to get a free flight or a free hotel.
I love it. This is great. This is the Jay Goot way of travel in a nutshell, all summed up in one pretty colored triangle.
Well, I know we went over on time. We've still got well over 400 people watching, so we're honored. Should we maybe answer a couple questions or?
Yeah, I know Brooke and a lot of our experts have been answering questions in the chat. So we could grab a couple of these here. I know I saw Jeanette's comment, exactly what you were talking about with specific airlines. take so
Yep.
many with a specific airline
If you're
versus
branded, you're
having
stranded.
these exactly flexible points. Joe, I know you kind of covered this earlier. Let me grab it. Here we go. You gave us a couple of sites, but maybe give us kind of a recap as we're starting to get past these individual airlines. What are the best websites? What do you recommend to start checking for these great deals, these JGoot style deals that we're going after?
So really, I mean, it's no more complicated than what I did on those earlier slides on the plan 12 to 18 months ahead. I religiously use Google Flights or Kayak, depending on my use case. Cover the difference in the book. And for points, I almost always go to seats.aero first. A couple other tools that are purely preference. Roam.travel, ROAME.travel. We know that the founder of that personally, great guy, as well as I was going to say a word tool, not a word tool. It is a word tool. Might have to fact check that third one. I haven't used it because I haven't had a need. I love my seats.aero subscription. Point.me is another great one. There are some examples of which is better. Again, covered in the book. That could be a whole hour in itself.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're flexible, go to seats.aero. If you've got specific plans and don't have flexibility on when and where, go to point.me. And then for hotels, there are tools out there. I just go straight to the hotel site because 9 times out of 10, I'm either using it towards Hyatt or I'm not using my points at all.
Yeah.
I don't overcomplicate it. That's how I operate. And I kind of have like, if I can use points, great. It's because I got better than 2 cents in value. If I don't, I have like a 4-step process that basically allow me to stretch those points as far as possible, or stretch my dollars as far as possible and earn as many points as possible. So I'm either spending my points or I'm earning. When it comes to flights and hotels, I'm either spending points or I'm earning a lot of points.
Love it. And spending points well when you do.
Exactly.
So here's a good one that comes up a lot. Maybe you can give us some inspiration because we're building from the ground up here. Kathy, newbie question. Haven't seen any international flights that meet the 30, 60, 90 rule yet. Are those only going to be crazy long layovers, like a 30-hour total flight time for a direct 10-hour flight?
No, that's not the case.
Right.
It does require some fishing. You're gonna have to look around, and occasionally there will be ones that are layovers, and you just decide to look again the other day. One thing I will say is, it's one thing for a 10-hour flight to be 18 or 20. That means a long time in airports. A 10-hour flight that is 30 or 40 hours is actually a blessing. That's one, that's practically a stopover. It's not a layover. It's practically a stopover. So this is another one of those mindset shifts of, yes, that might be a bad thing if you decided to spend that whole time in the airport. But if you've got longer than 6 hours, you can go and explore that city. In fact, sometimes, depending on the airline, you can say, actually, could we take a couple days? That's where it's called a stopover. And some airlines have stopovers. We have a different class on that for another time. But what I would say is, keep that in mind as well. Sometimes it's actually a blessing, and you can check an additional country off your list. Michelle and I did that in Athens. We got a great deal to Istanbul, but it had a 15-hour layover in Athens. We got a hotel. We got in late, got a hotel, took a nap, got up, explored the city, and then went straight to the flight to Istanbul. So it's one of those, it depends on how long of a layover that is, but don't forget to think about that. If it's longer than 6 or 7 hours, that's you can leave the airport and go check out the city.
Yeah, that's good. Let's maybe wrap up with this one. I know you mentioned the JGoot Lounge just a moment ago. There's a question kind of related to that. I have a Chase with 150,000 points, Amex with 160,000, trying to go to Italy in May and Greece in July. There are some specific trips in mind here. Would the JGoot Lounge or another part of JGoot be able to help me plan this? What's the best approach here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the lounge is definitely, if you're struggling on your own, then the lounge is definitely can help. And that's just enough points. We might have to help you earn a little bit more points. We might be able to combine those points because that's probably not going to be enough for two, assuming at least two people. And the lounge, I'll say two things. The more difficult the trip is, the more likely we can help you. But we're not miracle workers. Depending on, those are two specific places at two pretty peak times. We don't ever advise that people join Jagut Lounge just for one trip. Remember, the Jagut Way, by definition, means just get out of town, not just get to Greece in July. So, yes, we can help you, but we never guarantee that we'll be able to help you with the exact trip you're planning. The longer a leash you give us, the more likely we can help you. So maybe take that with a grain of salt. You can always set up a call at jagut.com/call and, talk with an advisor. And they can also tell you like, well, that's not actually like the guarantee we're able to give. We can get you to the continent, but we can't necessarily get you straight to Greece or Italy. But we can teach you the concepts that you can take with you long term and make those trips more likely for yourself.
Yeah. Well said. I always tell people that, we tried asking the airlines very nicely if they would lower their prices for us, and they politely declined. And so instead, we changed our approach to travel to find guaranteed great deals and great seats.
Yeah.
And so that's good. I think the same thing applies there.
A lot easier to ask your boss for an extra day off than it is to ask the pilot to drop the price.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, fantastic. This is great, Joel. I think we helped a lot of people. I think this was really good information. So thanks for sharing. Thanks for leading the way this afternoon, Joel.
And thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thoughts?
Mark your calendars. We're here every Monday. Mark your calendar for every Monday at 1:30 Pacific. We will be taking the last 2 weeks of the year off for the holiday, but we'll be adding plenty of value via an email newsletter. We've got some fun stuff in store for you, so keep an eye on your email. If you aren't getting our emails, go ahead and just grab a copy of our book for as little as $7, and you'll start getting emails from us about how to put that book to use. Happy travels, everyone.